and happy Saturday, beautiful people. I hope all is going well. Decided to get out the house, get some sunshine, because I know this upcoming week is going to be full of rain. So, excuse my little itchy, scratchy sounding voice. Really had to use it to enforce some classroom guidelines and rules. I'll just put it that way. Just recently, I had a situation in my classroom where a cousin, a female and male cousin, they were falling out. I don't understand, for them to be so related, why they have so much anger and frustration toward each other. And I know one of the cousins, the male cousin, was trying to poke the female cousin with a thumbtack. So I'm like, why are you trying to do that when she can just not only go home and tell your mama what she's doing, but if I have to make that call, you're going to get suspended. And then she going to go ahead and add on top of it and prove that you had a reason to be suspended. So, yeah, I had to deal with all of that, but, and try to remain cordial. Because I always tell my students, I said, look, I'm only here to teach. I was not hired to be a security guard or a bodyguard or a referee. So the minute y'all put your hands on each other, don't expect me to run over there and try to save the day. Because I'm not going to have any patience if somebody accidentally hit me while I'm trying to break y'all up. So basically, you got to think about it. The front office is a good 5-10 minute walk. By the time the principals run down here and break it up, by the time the deputy comes from all the way from the other side of the school, because our school is a charter school, so we go all the way up to 8th grade. By the time everybody try to come to my room to break it up, y'all gonna be in some real pain and bruises all over. So I'm just giving y'all a heads up. Y'all better think twice about fighting in my classroom. So, and yeah, I know some people be like, well, why do you want to break it up? Why do you want to break it up? Because my daughter ended up being in a brawl because two students got in a fight. One of the white teachers came over trying to break it up. They swung on the white teacher, knocked her out. And then once they knocked her out, then everybody just started fighting. It was like almost 10 people fighting at the same time. So I already know, I don't know who related and who's who. So to me, I leave it to the big dogs to handle that kind of stuff. Now, it was another incident where a teacher broke up a fight and one of the kids managed to get a good lick in. But by the time the other kid decided to hit back, the teacher had started breaking it up. And so the girl got upset because the teacher pulled her back to keep her from getting a lick back. And so she went home and told her dad. And when she went home and told her dad that the teacher, kept her from hitting the other student back, the parent was pissed off. And then the parent gonna come up to the school, want to meet the teacher that broke up the fight and tell the teacher that he was going to hurt her and shoot up the school to get to her because she decided to prevent her daughter from fighting a boy. And so we all had to go on lockdown because somebody decided to do something dumb by saying that he was going to shoot up everybody over some kid mess. We got some crazy parents out there. Crazy. And I don't have time for it. Yeah, I believe in protecting children, but I am not finna be risking my license and my life for some ungrateful people. Oh no. It ain't coming from me. So, but anyway, I was listening to a podcast. I always listen to podcasts because that's kind of where I get a lot of my knowledge. That's kind of like soothing to me, other than just sitting in a cold, freezing cold classroom listening to somebody lecture. But I get to have my little snacks with my podcast too, so I do appreciate that. But anyway, as I was listening to the podcast, they were talking about what people need to do when they want a successful relationship. I hear a lot of what people need to do, what women need to do, what men need to do, but I rarely hear people try to get to the root and the foundation of why females and males act the way they act, right? It's like, that's, okay, the way grown-ups act, that is mainly developed, and that's developed experience and with a little bit of learned behavior from their environment, their upbringing, right? And so that's kind of what created the personality of an adult, right? Some of their traits, some of their weaknesses, some of their strengths. That's what make the adult act how they act, right? But then if things are put in place early on, and I guess this is where social emotional skills come in at. If things are put in place early on, before people start to get older and start developing relationships, I believe it would be less issues within our society, less divorce rates within our society. That's just my take on it. Because listen, if I would have had the opportunity to see a healthy relationship as a child, and I had the chance to see it consistently throughout my upbringing, then I may have a different attitude or outlook, or I would know how to act accordingly when I'm faced with different challenges. And that goes for a male too. But the reason why this kind of hit me is because the students in my classroom, they're already displaying learned behavior, right? They're not faced with paying bills. They're not under adult stress. Well, they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be under adult stress. But let me help you understand where I'm coming from. So there's another student. I'm talking about another student, not the cousins I'm talking about earlier. But there's another young girl. She's a little petite little thing. She's real small, but she has a big attitude. And matter of fact, I don't know, was it her? One of the students decided to try to sneak and give me a "You Are My Favorite Teacher" drawing. I think it was her. But I try my best to, encourage her and speak positivity within her, because I can tell she's fighting so hard to be seen. And a lot of these students, they come to my classroom and they're just constantly forced and rushed and just not feeling like love. You can tell, okay, like when parents be dropping some of the students off, it's like, I've heard parents say, "Get the fuck out my car, you get on my damn nerve," and just take off. And that's like the start of a student day. And so when students come to my classroom and they already coming in with that kind of negative energy, because like I said, energy can't be destroyed, it can only be transferred, then now teachers are left to kind of deal with the whatever the problem is that the student finna bring in. So, but this little girl likes to follow behind the boy that always aggravating his cousin. So he's like popular because he's a little thin little fellow and always acting all big and bad. And he about the size of my wrist. His whole body about as small as my wrist. But yeah, he called himself trying to be all like have his pants sagging, skinny legs sagging. That looks so funny to me. And got his shirt all up and he trying to show girls his little boxes and stuff like that. And I always tell him, I said, "Boy, you need to pull your pants up, because you don't know, one day you might slip up and you might have some on your underwear and everybody can see it. But and you don't know it, so you might not want to make that a habit." I just kid around with them like that. But anyway, he decided to go over and hug this other young girl. She's short and cute too. And the other little girl, the little petite one, started looking at her like, "Ew, why are you hugging her?" And then it's like she looked at him like, "How you gonna try me like that?" Now, these are words that's not being said, but I'm pretty good at reading body language. When you deal with children most of your life, you kind of already know what's gonna happen next, how they gonna act, how they respond. And so this was during dismissal. So the following day, she came back to school and she was looking sad. She kept putting her head down. She was acting all sickly, and I'm like, "You good?" And she was like, "Yeah." She just wasn't that bubbly, hyper, student. And so we were getting ready to transition out of the classroom and go to wherever we need to go. And then she ran into the boy that hugged the girl, the other little girl. And then they just kind of started saying, I don't know exactly who said what to who first, because I was making sure all the students come out the classroom. So I wanted to make sure nobody get left behind. And they were kind of a little ahead of me. And then that's when they just started arguing. So the little girl was like, he tried me. He better not talk about my mama no more. Oh, I'm going to flip on him. So I'm like, y'all ain't about to start this, because I already told y'all, I ain't the one to be breaking up fights. You need to go on about your business. I told the boy, go on about your business. And she need to go on about her business. But, it just made me think, okay, they already displaying the jealous, insecure, toxic couple. That's what came to my mind. I know they're really young. They don't know nothing about no serious dating, but that's kind of like the foundation that's already being cooked up. And I already know if she don't get it under control, she's going to be fighting a whole lot of females for the rest of her life over guys that want to play mind games. And she don't know. That's because she's not being taught that self-love. She don't have that consistent reassurance, that validation from her parents, because that's where it's supposed to come from. When you mold that in that child, then that child will be more confident and be okay with being rejected. But when the parent already criticizing the child, either about grades or not picking up around the house, pulling their chores or weight or whatever, then it's almost like, I get criticized, I feel bad at home, and then I get to school and the person I like, I thought he really liked me, but now he liking some other girl, and it's like now the other girl probably want to fight her. I ain't no telling what's gonna happen on Monday. I don't know. I'll let y'all know the outcome. But like I said, I ain't breaking up no fights. But yeah, it's like I just don't think that it's right for us to sit and criticize people and I know it seems like I'm going on to another topic, but it's like I know that a lot of people get criticized about not acting accordingly in their relationship as an adult. And like I said, once you know that, okay, this is the trauma that started in my life. I lacked this because my mom lacked this, or my father lacked this. He was irresponsible, so it caused me to have no commitment, no respect for females. Once people start really digging deep into their childhood trauma, I feel like we'll have more healthy-minded people that's walking around in our society. You know what I mean? And I would say it has a lot to do with everything that's been rearranged and flipped around throughout our culture. But it comes a point in time where you say, okay, yeah, I know it was effed up the way the colonizers, used our African American or our African queens as breeders, or the kings as breeders, or mixed up all the bloodlines in the generation. Yeah, I know. I will say yes, that was a fucked up experience. But now that we know what we know today, now it's time for us to really put our foot down and start really making some changes. You cannot sit and criticize and be a hypocrite and talk about what somebody shouldn't do and what they should do and not really and ignore the foundation. You know what I mean? So not all parents have been given the right guidance to know how to be healthy people. I even deal with unhealthy people on my job. I don't even got to be in a special platonic relationship. It's just some people get in their ways and they feel like, okay, now I want to compete. Now I'm about to hate. Now I'm about to throw somebody on the bus so I can jeopardize their position, so I can look better, so I can stand out. It's like when people have that type of mindset, I'm pretty sure they're not going to have a healthy, long-lasting relationship. And I'm pretty sure their ways stems from the toxicity that they learned during, their upbringing. It just kind of reminded me of my ex-husband. He would go around trying to, speak positivity in people. And I sit there and I look at him. I'm like, well, dog, I am so impressed that you know how to say the right words at the right time to the right people so they can really look up to you and be inspired by you. But at the same time, behind closed doors, I'm being criticized, and he talking to me like I'm some little child that's just not, don't have no common sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. To me, it's just hypocrites. It's the same thing as a liar. And then when I say that to him, he's telling me, well, I ain't no liar. But there's different ways you can be a liar than saying, okay, the sky is blue. No, saying the sky is yellow when we know, we can obviously see that it's blue. There's other ways and other symptoms you can show as being a liar. You can be deceptive. That's still being a liar. Being a cheater, that's still being a liar. You know what I mean? So I remember I was on the phone. He was on the phone because his daughter was crying, talking about, she, I guess, had a physical altercation with her husband because of some toxicity, unhealthy relationship, insecurities, jealousy, cheating, leading to fighting. And so my husband sent up there trying to give some advice. Like, you need to go calm down. Don't put your hands on my daughter. That's what he's telling the guy that's with his daughter, trying to give all these positive advices. And I'm looking at him like, nigga, do you remember you choked me because I didn't want to be with you because you wanted to keep naked pictures, have naked pictures around the house? So I said to myself, it's not fully his fault. I can't even put it all on him, because it was the fact that I thought that was love. It was the fact that I was raised up to believe that because somebody pays the bills and somebody, keep up their haircut and look and smell good, that's like, okay, that's self-love. That's considered self-love, because they work hard. That's considered, love. And they share some of their money with me. That's considered love. But that's the problem. We have been conditioned to believe another cultural way of thinking and doing things and bringing it into our livelihood. And it's causing havoc over us. It's like ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it shows really bad in the Christian culture, because I've seen my grandparents, they come home and it's like they're miserable. I mean, they got a decent house, they got matching cars, got decent pay coming in, but it's like, it was just very cold in our household. And then they would make sure they look the best on Sunday and they preach the best word that touches all the members out there in the crowd. But then it just repeats. My grandfather had his struggles. My grandmother had her struggles. They demonstrated learned behavior. And it's even worse when you don't have that masculine and feminine energy in your life. That means you definitely off track, because you're unbalanced. You're coming in with more either masculine energy, which can be very egotistical, or you coming in with too much feminine energy, which can be too emotional and not having a backbone to stand up and speak and know that you're very important and you shouldn't be tolerating any type of nonsense. And so when you grow up in an unbalanced household, or you're being raised by unbalanced people, when you know, then you got to go and find out how to balance yourself out. That's it. You got to balance yourself out. Now, I don't want to go too much into details because I know this video is going to be too long. But I do know so far what worked for me, because I was raised by a single mother, which means I had to deal with a lot of masculine energy from her because she had to wear two hats. She had to play the mama role and the father role. She had to be the protector and the provider. And that was a lot on her plate. So she pretty much didn't do a lot of nurturing. And so I had to figure out as an adult why my life was going the way it was going, because I had my mindset on being in a healthy relationship, having healthy children and stuff like that. But you can't expect that to happen when you're not fully balanced yourself, because I spent a lot of my years depressed and codependent. So I'm not ashamed to acknowledge that. But I'm so proud of myself because now I know, now I know where the F up started. Now I know what I need to do because I did my research and I want to balance myself out. They say that when your root chakra, that's like the lowest vibration. That's when you are constantly looking for sex from anybody, anywhere. You're constantly judging people. You're constantly, and I'm going to try to put something up at the end of this video so you can see where I'm coming from. But your chakras, that's like energy spots that plays a role in your nerves and your behavior and your mindset. It influence you and you act according to how your chakras are balanced. That's like that yin and yang energy. If you got too much testosterone, then that means, most likely you have a lot of hair in odd places for females, and then you got to do certain things, eat certain things to balance it out. I heard eating strawberries, all red fruits and vegetables helps with balancing. I'm not saying it's going to cure everything. I'm just saying it helps with your solar plexus. Did I skip sacral? Solar plexus, sacral. Okay, well, I know that one of them, they're like a yellowish gold color. Then you try to go and eat pineapples, eat fruits that represent that color. There's nothing on the root chakra and nothing in your chakras that represent brown meat. So I'm just putting it out there. So if you gotta have your chicken fried wings and your greasy beef burger, that's gonna slow up your progress with trying to balance out. And then once you start balancing yourself out, you are more level-headed. You try to do more things to bring in positivity, either looking at positive motivating videos, reading motivating books, knowing how to surround yourself around positive people. It's like we attract who we are. So if you walking around drinking, getting high, fuck these females, or these niggas ain't nothing but, shit and all that kind of stuff, you walk around with that type of mentality, then that's who people gonna come around you be like, that relates to you, that have the same type of issues, and they're gonna cheer you on. So if you want to make changes in your life, if you want to acknowledge all the flaws that you have, that's when you run into that shadow. That's when you are isolating yourself and you're looking at every choice you made and every side effect, the positive and the negative, and then you look at, okay, what are some ways I can do things better? Once you get that in place, then you're good to go. That's when, if you do it at the right age, then you can have the right guy come into your life that's on your level. That's what they call the equally yoked. Y'all a good match. Y'all then have seeds, children that grow up healthy. And then even though they're going to go through challenges, because it seems like the good people, they go through more challenges than the bad people. But that's because that's just a test of nature. But you trust me, your seeds will be protected. I promise you. You will be protected by your ancestors, your spirit guides, if you go this route. Once you meet the right match and you start healing, and you start demonstrating good, healthy behaviors, then your generation will go on in your generation. It's not too late, even if you have kids with somebody that you just didn't know was a fuck up and always made poor choices and made you feel like shit. Don't think that it's too late for you, because it's not. Once you know the formula with the chakras, knowing how to eat the right foods, knowing how to rewire your brain and condition yourself in a new way of thinking, leaving all of that old traditional unhealthy thought process behind, then you too can heal your generation. And then you can, constantly reiterate all of the information and practice grounding and practice, having an altar and all that kind of stuff. And then you should have, a smooth experience throughout life. I'm not saying you're gonna have no challenges. That we in somebody else's world, in somebody else's system that took over. But in reality, yeah, you just got to make the right. That's up to you. I just put the information out there. It's up to you what you want to do with it. But I just know a lot of my students that come through my classroom, they're already broken. Like I said in one of my other videos, I had second grader talking about they want to unalive themselves, because they did not get that love. It's almost like mama go out there and they make a mistake, or they slip up and get with somebody they thought that was right for them, and then they end up getting pregnant, and now they treating it, taking it out on the child, and then the child come to school, and most of the time they take it out by bullying other kids, or they take it out on the teacher. That's what I had to tell one of my students on yesterday. I said, look, you're not going to come in my classroom and run things. I said, if you do not want to come to school, that's between you and your parents. I said, for one, I'm going to still do my job, and I'm not going to allow you to stop me from doing my job. So it's either you get on board and work with me, or you stay your behind home. And I'm going to let you know, if you stay home too many days, the DCF coming after you, CPS coming after your parents. So it's either they got to show proof that they homeschooling you, or they got you on some kind of online school, or, they're going to have to answer to the law. So these are the choices. I tell my parents, I tell my students, I said, look, I don't come to play. No, I'm not a PE coach. I already feel like I got to be a darn counselor, and I ain't getting paid for that. So yeah, I be telling my students, you better start all over. And I be hoping that they go back and tell the parents, because then that means I get to educate the parents, because a lot of the parents don't know. And I'm not even here to judge them, because I was one that didn't know. I didn't know no better. I didn't know that my relationship was impacting my son and causing him to be very antisocial or very depressed and stuff like that, because I was in an unhealthy relationship. I didn't know. I mean, he's a smart student. And I can tell when I look at I think back over his report card, all the years that my relationship was pretty much quiet and peaceful, straight A student, AB on the road. But then when it started to turn into chaos, because it had like its up and down roller coaster ride, that's when I noticed the grades changing and dropping. And then I got to go sit in for a conference. So, and I'm like, I be telling my son, you making me look bad, because I'm a teacher, and how in the world I'm going to be a teacher, and y'all, you ain't doing your work. So, but it was all good. Like I said, we go through things and we learn and we just do better. And that's just how it is. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and conclude it. And I hope that you guys can take something positive from my message and just use it however you can to uplift yourself. I'll do, like I said, another video on the book that I have that really talks about our African spirituality and how they did things to keep themselves balanced. Before the colonizers decided to turn everything into, oh, y'all are witches, let's burn them alive. Before all of that, when our ancestors had a peace of mind on this earth, the land, when the land was given to everybody that existed in this world. And then here they go trying to kick some Mexicans out of America. But then they forgot they didn't even start off in America. Okay, let me go, before I go into another video, let me go ahead and conclude this. But y'all be easy, stay blessed, stay positive, and I'll be in touch. Peace out.